Good afternoon, and welcome to another episode of Level Up Your Playing with Mr. Goff. I'm Mr. Goff, your host, and we have a very special guest that we have with us today, a former classmate of mine. She is the director of instrumental music at Erskine College, and without further ado, I'll introduce you to Dr. Deborah Caldwell. How's it going, Dr. Caldwell?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing great. So we've been working on this series talking about ways that we can just improve our playing across the board, and we've talked a lot about practicing techniques, and so we thought we would just ask you a few questions as a professional musician and someone who's had a lot of success in the field. Just kind of pick your brain a little bit. Does that sound like something we can do?
Sounds awesome. I wish I could have done that when I was in school.
Well, let's go ahead and jump in then. First question is, what first got you into music?
I think it was kind of two different things. One was exposure, growing up listening to lots of different music in my house and with my family, and then also just the legacy of having three older siblings who were in band and kind of started that tradition in our family. So as the youngest, I always wanted to do everything they did. So always knew I'd be in band, and my parents actually met in band in college. So felt like it was kind of the thing to do.
That's awesome. Is there someone specific who inspired you to make music?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think ultimately it comes from God, just having that something inside that wants to make music. And then that love of music was fostered, I think, especially by my parents. They were super supportive all the way through. They listened to me play my open G's in sixth grade forever. Anyway, they were very, very supportive. And then I had amazing teachers all the way through, which were really awesome. They didn't give up on me and helped me get to where I am today. And then older high school kids, I always remember being in middle school and looking up to those juniors and seniors in high school and wondering if I would ever be that good. So I think all those people kind of continued that love of music.
That's really awesome. How would you describe the kind of music you create? And I guess really, like, what is your main instrument? And we can kind of go into all of that right now.
That's awesome. Yeah, my main instrument is trumpet, which is obviously the best instrument ever. I'm just kidding. Just
Spoken,
kidding.
spoken like a true trumpet player, yeah.
Thought I'd, fill the role that we're supposed to fill. So, yeah, so trumpet is my main instrument, and I am just a band person. So I grew up in Arkansas, and I didn't play in orchestra until I got my master's degree. So I feel like band is where my true love is. And I also play a little jazz, but I'm not very great at it. I just enjoy it. So anything melodic is music that I'm into.
And you do it very, very well, I
Oh.
might say. So talk to us about your creative process. So how does, from start to finish, as you're working on a piece of music, what does that look like?
I think the best analogy a teacher's ever given me is that it's like flying an airplane, and probably most of the time is spent tinkering in the shop on the airplane, making sure everything's working. We're working on fundamentals. I'm practicing my scales. I'm practicing my range. I'm trying to figure out where my weaknesses are. I'm trying to strengthen those. But then, every once in a while you get to perform, and that's when you get to get in the pilot seat and just enjoy the ride. So I think most of the time it's laying foundation that enables those awesome mountaintop experiences of performing. And sometimes the performances don't go well, and then you get back in the shop and you keep working. And I feel like every performance I want to be better than the last, so it never stops. But in some ways it's really fun because I never know what the next one's going to be. And yeah, I think that's the best way to describe it. I always try to have something that I'm learning and something that I'm polishing on at the same time, so that I don't get bogged down in one or the other.
That's really great. Yeah, we recently had a conversation with our good friend Cyrus Morris, and
Yay.
I'm really excited to hear that there are a lot of similarities with what you're saying, that like fundamental work and like foundation work is really, really important. If you had to give a percentage to how much time you spend working on those fundamental things, scales, tone building exercises and stuff like that, and then like the time that you spend working on performance pieces, what would you say that ratio kind of looks like?
Wow. During COVID, it's a lot different than maybe normally would be. Um, I probably spend a good 40% of my practicing, like today, for instance. I probably spent 40 to 50% of it on fundamentals, but then only maybe 10% of it on something that I'm going to perform soon. So I'm going to try to make some recordings of things, but that happens normally at the end. And the other, can't do my math right now, the other 20 or 30% is like etudes or other music that is helping me to get better, but it's not scales or something potentially as boring as that.
Gotcha. So you would say that maybe like only 10% of the work you do is on stuff that you're actually going to be performing for the public, and the other 90% is just helping you to grow and develop as a musician.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that might change. For instance, like if I'm getting ready for an audition, that might change and be skewed a little bit more towards the performance music. But in times like this, when I don't have quite as many performances as I do other things, I'm really trying to step back and focus on the fundamentals. But even when I am working towards a performance, I think it's really critical to still do the fundamentals and then still do non-performance music. So yeah, it's definitely the vast majority is not on performance music.
Gotcha. Okay. That's really good information. Thank you. Um, okay. Who would you most like to collaborate with? If you could collaborate with anyone in the world, who would it be and why?
Mm, that is such a good question. The first, well, in general, I think the type of music I would love to collaborate with is brass quintet or brass band, like a British brass band, because every member of the group is a soloist essentially, and that their part is really important. Um, and that's not to say in band that when you play sixth trumpet, you're not the most like that doesn't belittle that at all. But there's an element of brass band where because you all play similar instruments, the cornets normally get to play the woodwind part, so we get to do all the flashy stuff. Or anyway, it's just fun to kind of explore those things and be chamber music heightens that sense of ownership on the music that I really have to take charge and listen better. And so that would be, I guess, just more generally, those would be the types of ensembles I would love to be a part of. Some of my favorite quintets would be the Boston Brass Quintet. They do a lot of jazz music, very accessible, but really just impeccable in their precision of performance. And then if I was British, I would love to do a band like the Black Dyke Mills Band is one of the best British brass bands in the world.
That's really cool. Yeah, and I don't know that I've necessarily heard of that group. I've not delved real deep into British bands, but something to add to my listening list for sure.
There you go.
Okay, what is one message you would give to a group of young performers?
Mm. Yeah, that's a great question too. I think the biggest thing for me is always to seek and welcome advice and then to take it and work with it. So I'll always remember going to Pennsylvania to a trumpet conference, and the lady was selling trumpets, but she was a flute player. And so I played a few trumpets and she was like, no, I'm not a trumpet player, but I think you sound like this on this horn and like this on this horn. And she was actually able to really listen well and give really good objective advice. And I never would have thought that from a flute player. No offense to my flute player friends, but it's, you normally ask for help from people that know your instrument, but in actuality, we can all offer something to everybody else. And so I think seeking that out, if you're getting bored, make a recording and send it to your friend who plays a different instrument and say, hey, what do you hear in this? Do you like my phrasing? Can you hear the dynamic contrast I'm trying to do? But seek out accountability if you're not being held accountable by anyone.
Yeah, great advice. Advice I could have probably used even in college.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, man. Okay, where have you performed and do you have any upcoming performances?
Oh, Um, Man, I don't have like a full list of things, but I think the coolest thing as I think back on performances is going to different schools around the country. And that's really opened up a lot of different performances in the country. So when I went to K-State, we got to play at Carnegie Hall, which was amazing. It's everything I had hoped it would be. And then I went to Georgia, University of Georgia, and we got to go to Panama, like the country Panama, and play, and that was really awesome. So um, besides just around the states, and I also got to play in the presidential inauguration parade one year in high school, so that was pretty awesome.
That is
um,
awesome. Yeah.
so those were some of my highlights, I guess. And then yeah, around the world, have a few friends and family in different places, so I haven't ever done any big recitals, but have been able to bring my trumpet with me wherever I go and play for people, whether it's at their job or yeah, one time I was on national TV just because I played the national anthem at some guy's speech. It's like I didn't didn't look for that opportunity, but I had my trumpet and I had the music, and it was a fun opportunity. And as far as upcoming performances, we're hoping to do our civic orchestra and maybe do more chamber music because of the limited options. So hoping to do that, and then hoping to come back to Arkansas in November to do the Hummel Trumpet Concerto with a little chamber orchestra there, which is always fun to come back to my hometown and play because it's been so long. And it's a piece that I've never performed with orchestra. I've only ever done it with piano, so that'll be really fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, we look forward to seeing some of those. Will any of them be put on YouTube or streamed live or anything?
I don't know, but if it is, I will keep you posted. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, we'd love to share that with our kids. Is there a famous musician that you admire?
The first one that comes to mind is Phil Smith, who's a trumpet player, and I'm just really impressed with his what's the word? Well, his famous quote that keeps running through my brain is "Make it happen." Like nothing stops him. He's always focused. He can always do it, and also has a wide range of color. And I think you guys probably talked about this, but he can play really loud and he can lead the orchestra from the back of the room. But then he can also play in a brass quintet and play very smooth and quiet. And he just has the full range of musical styles, which I really appreciate.
Awesome. What is the best advice that you've been given as a musician?
It actually came from Phil Smith, and it's to sing no matter what. And it kind of comes actually from Gordon Jacob, who's a tuba player from the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. And song and wind is kind of the general thing. You always want to be blowing as a wind instrumentalist, but then on top of that, you always want to be singing in your head. And Phil Smith would always say, "Listen to your Gabriel," and what he meant by that was always have in your mind what you want to sound like, and have that playing, and then just let it happen and don't overthink it. So don't listen to the other voices in your head, don't listen to other people in the room, but just sing how you know how to sing, and then most of it will take care of itself if you can just focus on making music and making that melody.
That's really cool. Yeah. What was your biggest hurdle while becoming a musician, and how did you overcome it?
I think in general, what I still struggle with actually is a lot of self-doubt. Like, I'm not sure I'll ever be good enough, or I'm just really still bad at this one thing, or I still can't play that high, or I still can't play that fast. Those thoughts still come to my head daily. And so I think as a musician, that's what holds me back more than anything, is that constant conversation of just battling those lies and saying, yeah, I may never play the highest note in the world, but it doesn't mean I can't be successful. So I'd say the biggest thing that's helped is not trying to fix it today, but saying, for instance, I was in the practice room this morning, and it's like, man, when am I going to be able to focus better? Like, when am I going to not be so distracted? And instead of going down that road of like misery, like I will never be good, it was like, okay, for the next 5 minutes, I'm going to really try to focus better. And then, of course, after 3 minutes, I start going down different rabbit trails. But at least for those 3 minutes, I was consciously getting better at it. And so um, I think there's a lot of epiphany moments, but the epiphany moments are few and far between. And so being patient and wow, what's the word? Persevering in those times, knowing that you are getting better, it is gonna get better, but not giving up when it isn't fixed overnight.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would be surprised to know that like even someone with a doctoral degree in music, would have issues with like self-doubt, but I love that practical advice of like taking the things you can control and those little small details and focusing on those instead of like worrying about the what ifs. I really like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, let's see here. We're into the student questions now. So these are all questions that my students were, when I asked them, if you could ask a professional musician anything, what would you ask them?
Awesome.
The next one, yes. What is the most stressful or exhausting part of your career?
Ugh, that's funny. You should ask. No, you actually mentioned part of my answer before, saying that there's always somebody better than you, or every time I stop practicing for the day, not every time, the thought goes through my head, but somebody's practicing more than you. Um, and so do I really want to stop now, or should I keep practicing? So kind of that nagging feeling always, that there's always somebody practicing more. And then kind of more than that, what I've noticed this summer especially is I can't take a vacation from my horn. So I can do things in seasons, and I can do less practicing or I can do more practicing, but kind of like an athlete, I'm not really allowed to take a day off. So, and if I do, I should preface that by saying I always take one day off a week, both for mental and physical renewal, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So one day a week, I don't even touch the horn. I don't even listen to work music. I just take a break. And that really helps me the other 6 days be super productive, at least more productive than if I tried to slug it out for 7 days a week. So hopefully that's not, not terrible to say, but I've noticed when I travel, especially like on road trips, it's like, okay, if I leave on Monday, I normally practice this amount, but I can't because I'm in the car for 10 hours. So I'll touch the horn, but I know by Thursday it's hurt. Like it hurts because I've taken that time off, and it feels like it takes me 2 weeks to overcome that. And so always wanting to be ready for that gig, not knowing when it's coming. So I always want to be on top of my game, but that requires of me to always be practicing, and not really being able to like put the horn in the closet for a week and go to Florida or whatever. So that's probably the most exhausting. Christmas vacation, but I still need to take my horn on the plane and make sure I play a certain amount every day, just so that when I come back in January, I'm not messed up for a month.
Right. I think that's hard for a lot of us as far as like finding that balance. And I remember at one point in our like undergraduate conducting stuff, something that Dr. Hamilton told us and kind of emphasized for us was, that like for a conductor especially, your body is kind of part of your instrument. And so that care of yourself is really important, and like making sure that you're staying healthy and staying rested, because like what you were saying earlier about your mind being part of your instrument too,
Yes.
hearing that and stuff too. But at the same time, you can't really overdo that and like let up too much. So
Mm-hmm.
very difficult to figure that balance.
Mm-hmm.
What does your schedule look like day to day, or even just your practice routine?
Yeah. I think in an ideal world, I would, excuse me, warm up for breakfast. I love 3 meals a day. So anyway, I will get up early if it means I get breakfast. So I think in an ideal world, I would warm up for maybe 15 minutes before breakfast, and then breakfast, read, and then do 45 minutes of practice, go do some other work, come back to practicing 45 minutes of practice, and kind of do that for various parts of the day as much as possible. How that looks in actual life doesn't always happen. So for instance, today as a college professor, I am supposed to be good at my instrument, but I also have to be taking care of, as you know, of all the other details that go with making music. And so Yeah, today I got up, I ate breakfast, I read, I warmed up and practiced for about an hour. Then I cleaned my trumpet. Actually, it was bath day. So I cleaned my trumpet, I polished my trumpet, I listened to some podcasts, and then practiced for another little bit. I came to school and I met with a prospective student for 2.5 hours. We had lunch together. We talked about the upcoming semester. Um, and then I've been doing emails. I'm going to try to get some music scanned for our Christmas concert. I'm going to um, try to get my syllabus and other calendars ready. And then I'm hoping to practice a little bit more before dinner. And then we'll see what the rest of the day holds. So today's a little off because I had a few other like bigger commitments. And the kind of the same thing when I teach during the semester. It's kind of sneaking in those 30 minutes or those 20 minutes of practice here and there. And again, being able to kind of flip the switch, like now it's time to practice and now it's time to serve in other ways. So again, that's been a good learning curve for me, to be able to shift gears quickly.
Yeah. So, how do you get over mental blocks and push through those really long days?
Yeah. um, I think the best thing I can do is just to switch it up. So if I think there's a balance between discipline and creativity. So if I am really sick and tired of practicing transposition, there are times when I think I need to keep doing it. And there are times when it's like, you know what, I think I can practice something else the next day and then I'll come back to it in the next day or whatever. I think making sure I have accountability is really important. I think I can be internally motivated a lot, but that only goes so far. And so having this summer, I've tried to go through a book like the Clark studies. I've only basically ever done the second and fourth Clark study, but there are 10. So it's taken me all summer to actually play through every single one of them and actually get faster at them. So it's been really fun and it gives me progress. I can see my progress. Like I've made it over halfway through the book or I've made it all the way through. So that's been really good. And then sometimes I'll actually like a dice or a die. I can't remember. I'll make different things to practice. So practicing it half speed, practicing it slurred the whole way through, practicing it tongued all the way through, changing the rhythms. Instead of doing 16th notes, I'll do triplets, or playing with a drone on in the background, playing with a recording, or things like that. So just to keep myself on my toes, trying to practice, still getting through the repertoire I want while also getting better, but keeping my mind engaged. And then for another thing, especially during COVID, when my schedule is so wide open during the summer, or I don't have a lot of landmarks throughout the day, like I will practice an hour before my meeting at 10 or anything. I like to use my phone and set either a stopwatch or a timer. And I switch that up too, because after a couple weeks, it doesn't work as well. So then I'll switch to the other one. So today I set my clock, my timer for how much I wanted to practice. And then if I take a break to go get a drink, I'll stop it and I'll come back and I'll restart it. And that really keeps me honest and it gives me a goal. Like once that timer rings, I can walk away in good conscience that I met my goal. So I think as a professional musician, we are our own teachers. I can still ask for advice from other people and I still send recordings to people. But I have to remember what my teachers did that I really liked and appreciated, and then I have to implement those myself. I really like it when my teachers are really organized and have a specific plan. So I have to be really organized and make a specific plan for myself.
Yeah, that's great. Well, and I think too, something that helps kind of as a benefit for that is it goes back to that earlier advice about like seeking help from a lot of different sources, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and that gives you more of a, I don't know, I would almost think that gives you more of a library to pull from even, you know,
Mm-hmm.
of techniques to use and things like that.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, my clarinet friends maybe have a totally different way of practicing technique than my trumpet friends. And so, yeah, that'll come up. Yeah, so good point.
Love it. Okay, and then our last question, or I guess next to last question, I have one more for you after that. But did music ever get boring? And if so, how did you continue to be inspired, motivated, and love music?
Mm. Yeah, so I mentioned a few things like this summer I tried to make a video recording project because the reason I love one of the reasons I love music is because I get to make it with other people. I'm an extrovert, and so sitting in a practice room by myself only gets me so far. And
Yeah.
so, and it was like, so if I can't play with other people, I could play with myself and make a recording with, 8 trumpet parts or whatever. So that was actually really fun. Um, and yeah, allowed me to share music with other people, which is why we do it. I think rewarding yourself is also fine. So like, um, for a few weeks in the summer, I would try to work, Monday through Friday. And then Saturday, I would actually back off on the fundamentals and just do a lot of sight reading or, pull up some orchestral music and just play with recordings or things like that to kind of reward myself. Like, I've made it through 5 days of grueling work. I'm going to enjoy something maybe more musical than I've been doing. But I still have the horn on my face. I'm still listening. I'm still getting better. And so I think that also brings up another way is just listening to good music. So I've just started a playlist on my phone of good band and orchestra music. And so as I listen to the radio or whatever, I'll start adding things that I really enjoy, especially with good trumpet parts or whatever. And so I think I learn a lot from that, but it also inspires me again to go and make music.
Yeah. Um, okay, and just as a final thing, so like, if you had to take, you've given us several really good tools as far as practice techniques, but one practice technique that you were just like, this is almost always works for me. This is something that I just really, it might be really hard, but like you always see results from it. What would that be?
That's really good. The first thing that comes to mind is the metronome, which can be sometimes our mortal enemy, but it really does help. Someone once told me you can play anything slow. I don't care what it is. If it has a million 64th notes on the page, you can play it slow. And so realizing that no matter where I am or what I'm working on, I can always find a spot on the metronome where I can be successful. And if I can do that, then I can incrementally increase it to a performance tempo or where my fingers work better. But if I can play it with the metronome, that gives me the foundation I need then to make music. I can push and pull in certain spots, but if I can't play it with the metronome, it's not performance ready. And it would be, I guess to clarify, it would be awful if I played everything with a metronome or very strict. But I think that's an important step in getting to performance readiness is being able to, again, it's kind of that accountability thing too.
Mm-hmm.
If I can't be held accountable to the metronome, then I shouldn't deserve to be pushing and pulling on phrasing and other things. So work with the metronome always.
Yes. I like to tell the kids the metronome never lies. It is the most honest person you'll ever work with.
That's right.
Well, thank you again, Dr. Caldwell, for joining us. We appreciate your wisdom and your time, and we wish you all the success in this upcoming craziness.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for having me. And I wish you all success too. Can't wait to hear what show you guys are doing. And I hope you enjoy every minute of it, whatever that looks like. So,
Well, thank you again, and thanks to all of you guys for watching, and we'll see you again soon.